Country living on a shoestring here. I know you're not used to seeing me in front of the camera. I'm usually always behind it when I have posted videos to our YouTube site, but I decided that I'd try something new here. It's been quite a while since I've done any kind of current events updates on our page. I know when we were talking about impeachment that I gave a number of them that were listed on there in the State of the Union and so on, and it's been a while since I've done that. It's been kind of busy with things, so I did want to come back and talk to you a little bit about everything that's going on right now. With all this nonsense with this Chinese Wuhan coronavirus ravaging the world and America on semi-lockdown and people not sure about the economy and wondering what's going to be next, and people hoarding mountains of toilet paper and water and bread and everything else. It's kind of a time when people just are on edge. So let's talk about some of those issues, cut through some of the crap, and just examine the facts as they exist so that we can have some peace of mind and have some hope, and also draw on our strengths from our families and our homes and our way of life here in this nation to know that everything's going to be all right. Maybe you already know that. Maybe you don't need this pep talk from me, but maybe this is something you could share with family or friends. That's up to you. But let's start kind of at the beginning. This virus, and it's not something that antibiotics work on because it's a virus. It's not a biologic. I forget the other term there, but it doesn't work for this kind of a disease. The only thing that works are antibodies when your body builds an immune system. It builds up your immune system to fight it. The problem is this is a brand new one, so no human bodies have any kind of immunities built up, and that's the issue. Now, a very well-educated friend of mine makes it abundantly clear that this is not a human-created virus. This is something that existed in nature. He does believe that it existed in a bat population, as there are a number of viruses like it that do exist in bats. They don't get sick from it because their immune systems are much different than humans. But we know that it did come from Wuhan, China. The thing that we don't know is that did it have anything to do with the Bioweapons Institute that the Communist Chinese government has in Wuhan? Was it something they found, something they've been studying, something that they were doing experiments on? Was it something that escaped from the lab and got out to the local population? I mean, that's where the first infected patients were from, the Wuhan area. That's where it originated, so something there caused it. Did it come from the lab? We can't prove that. We'll never know that because the Chinese government has already destroyed any records it had of it, I'm sure. Some people think, well, maybe they released it on purpose to create these biological bombs all over the world to cause chaos. We have no proof of that. Is it beyond the pale for a communist regime? No, they do stuff like that all the time, and they don't care how many of their own people they kill in the process. I mean, anybody who's read the history of the Korean War can tell you that. The communist Chinese troops, when they started helping North Korea to fight against the Americans and what were the South Koreans, essentially they just used the human wave theory of warfare. We'll just keep sending bodies out until the enemy runs out of bullets, and then we'll overwhelm them. It didn't matter how many people of their own they lost. But that's irrelevant to where we are there and now. I mean, that's what may have happened. We don't know. That it could have been released intentionally. What's more likely is either their safety protocols were breached, somebody was sloppy and it got out, somebody got infected and took it back home to their families and went from there. Or what's also a possibility is some technician who worked there decided he was going to make some money, stole one of the test monkeys and tried to sell it at a marketplace, and that's how it got out. Who knows? We have no way of knowing one way or the other what the truth is. But the fact of the matter is, President Trump calling this the Chinese virus is accurate because it comes from China. Period. It's not racist. It's not condemning the Chinese nationality or the Chinese people. It's simply a fact. Okay. Now, if we look at the timeline, though, there's something very interesting that the press doesn't want to talk about. And that is, we started seeing and hearing about this in China in December of 2019. Our government was aware of it. We didn't know yet what was going to happen with it. We had no idea because the information coming from the communist Chinese was spotty at best. But guess where the focus was in Washington in December of 2019? Yep. Let's impeach Trump. The focus of the media, the focus of the Democrat Party, and specifically now, the Democrat Intelligence Committee, chaired by our good friend Adam Schiff, should have been aware of this, should have been focused on this, because as a member of the Intelligence Committee, they would have had this information, the top flight information, top of the line information coming from China, to get on the front end of this possible outbreak. But Schiff couldn't see anything other than, Trump being removed from office in his own time before the camera, trying to show the world what a wonderful guy he is. As things progressed through January and we had impeachment votes, that's when infected people came to America. They think that perhaps the first one was a Chinese person who came, or someone who had been to Wuhan, came to Washington State, because that's where the first hotspot was, at a nursing home out there. We don't know. One of the other places where it exploded early on, or had infections early on that has exploded incredibly, horribly, is Italy. And in Italy, it was in the northern region, the Lombardy region, that has been most hardest hit. And guess what? There's a connection between Lombardy, Italy, and Wuhan, China. Many textile and leather workers have been imported to Italy to work on their products there from Wuhan. So guess where how the virus got to Italy? It came with these people, and maybe the reason it's so bad in Italy is maybe there were multiple people who were infected. We have no idea, but that's one of the problems. And with international air travel, it spread all over the world very quickly. I think what's the latest tally now? 143 countries where it's been discovered, and we're battling with it, of course, here in the United States because of this. But instead of the House Intelligence Committee focusing on a potential growing threat to the security and safety and health of this nation, Schiff and his radical goons were trying to impeach Trump. So there was no attention placed on that. And the Senate, even with the Intelligence Committee, well, they were building a defense. They were trying to rally around the president. So this was ignored way, way too long. There's a timeline, you can see it, it's online a number of places, just how the two parallel, the growth of the virus during the same time as the impeachment proceedings are cascading down through to when they had the final vote. Many people may not realize it, but I did find a videotape of it. It's not a long segment, but President Trump actually spoke about it in the State of the Union. Yeah, people don't remember much about that in the State of the Union, because I remember Pelosi and her childish temper tantrum at the end where she ripped it up. But he did mention that it was a growing threat, and he was monitoring it, and he wanted to try to keep the American people safe. So now that gets to, I think that was early February when he did the State of the Union. So he was aware of it, his administration was aware of it by then. But again, a lot of their energies at the White House unnecessarily were forced to deal with a defense against this stupid impeachment. If these radical Democrats could have accepted the election result of 2016 and done their jobs in December and January and investigated and acted proactively to stop this virus from being imported into the country beyond what Trump did. I mean, he shut off travel to China early on in January, but if he'd had more support from those in Congress, especially the Democrats in Congress, we might not have the crisis we have right now. And maybe nobody would in the world. They'd have been far more prepared. But that's irrelevant now. That ship has sailed. This is something the Democrats are going to have to own from now forever. And sadly, they're pulling the same nonsense again. Now that the president has put forth a plan to economically help the distressed people of this nation, people who've been out of work now for weeks, people who are struggling to pay bills, people who were doing better under the economy until all this nonsense happened. Now the Democrats don't want the plan to go forward unless they can stick in trillions of dollars worth of pork for the new Green Deal and abortion funding and all this other crap that has nothing to do with protecting American lives and saving the economy. And they're dragging their feet. And it's the Democrats in the Senate, and it will be the Democrats in the House who are doing this. Once again, these people have no consideration for the average person in the United States of America. They're owned by lobbyists, they're owned by their own egos, and they're bought and paid for by the radical leftist groups who are trying to change America into something it has never been. And they're using this latest crisis to try to do that. When will this get resolved? I don't know. But you know what you can do? Find your congressman or senator's phone number. They're publicly published. You can look them up online. Especially if your senator or congressman is a Democrat. Call them on the phone and say, when is my check coming? And remind them that if there's a delay, there will be no delay on your part in voting against them in November. In fact, I think at this point, what we've seen this last year from the Democrat Party and their disregard for the well-being of the American people is that we should red in November. Remove every Democrat. Vote them all out. Put Pelosi back to the backbench where she belongs, or maybe she'll go into early retirement and enjoy her $100 million with her questionable business practice husband. Put Chuckle Schumer on the backbench somewhere in the Senate, or he'll probably retire, or some radical will run against him in a primary and get rid of him. Who knows? But we need to get conservative Republican control in both houses of Congress and keep the presidency if we want to turn things around. It's going to take some time to recover from this whole mess that was created by these people. They tried to drive the markets down. They tried to scare people to death. Their cronies in Wall Street managed to do their insider trading and get rich on other people's misery. And now the stock market's down thousands of points. And it's all nonsense. But it can be turned around, and it can be turned around very quickly. But we have to rally around the support of what the president is trying to do. We need to get ahead of this virus and cut it off. As of today, the president is talking about maybe after a week or two, we'll get back to opening up the government and jobs again. Only just keep in quarantine the real hot spots in America, the places where the dangerous outbreaks are at their worst. I don't know. There's evidence that these new drugs, these quinine-based drugs, might be able to deal with the problem effectively. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but we'll see what happens. I do know that Americans have been through many, many, many crises in our nation's history. We've had to fight world wars. We've fought pandemics before. We've had financial crises before. We've had all kinds of issues, rioting in the streets, you name it, bad weather, terrible catastrophes with weather. We've had sometimes food shortages because of horrible weather like the Dust Bowl, and other times in our nation's history, radical flooding. But you know what? We've come through it because we've had a strength, and we've had a unity, and we've had the power of faith in God, commitment to freedom, commitment to free markets, commitment to allowing people to succeed in achieving what they want to achieve in their lives without somebody telling them you can't. And that's what will get us through this. It won't be some government handout. It won't be some government program. It certainly won't be some kooky multi-trillion-dollar green deal where nobody flies airplanes anymore and we all ride around on bicycles like Cuba. But we can survive this. Now, if you're like me and you live out in the country, this is not as close to home perhaps as if I'd lived in a major city, but that was a choice we made, wanting to live out in the country. Those of you who are subscribed at least have sympathies along those lines if you're not out in the country yourselves. It's funny, when this whole thing first started, or at least in the last week or two, this old song kept coming back into my head. It was Hank Williams Jr.'s "A Country Boy Can Survive," and there's truth to that. We are more self-sufficient, we tend to be, than folks who live in the cities. And yet the people in the country are still here to provide for the people in the cities their basic necessities. We don't need Hollywood movies to survive in this country. We don't need professional sports stars making multi-millions of dollars a year chasing balls. But we do need farmers. We do need mechanics. We need truck drivers. We need tradespeople, electricians and plumbers and carpenters, if we're going to continue to survive. I'm not knocking education, don't get me wrong. We need our doctors, and we need our computer experts, and we need clergy, and we need wise judges, and we need all kinds of people to make this society work. But it's the country folks who are the ones who are the backbone of this country. The people who have worked with science and technology to improve yields in food production to unheard of levels in the history of humanity. We are able to do so much more with so much less today. The yields per acre are unbelievable. The abilities we have to grow things that we never could before, or could never multi-crop, and all kinds of things are connected to how agriculture has exploded in this country. I mean, the American farmer could feed the entire world if we had to. If we put all available farmland that's still available into production in this country, we could literally feed the entire world. That's the truth of it. So, country folks, hang in there through this nonsense. comfort your city folks if they're all freaked out, if they're getting cabin fever. Send them videos from the country so that they can see the green grass and the birds and the deer and the flowers and so on, so that they realize there is a world beyond their apartment walls. Let's keep praying for our leaders, our medical people, our researchers, those in law enforcement, those in our government too, so that they make wise decisions instead of all this nonsense that they're doing. And we will come through this. So I thank you for taking the time to listen to this rant or this update, whatever you want to call it. And please, if you haven't subscribed to Country Living on a Shoestring, please click on the subscribe tab, hit the notifications bell so that when I do more videos, we will get them online. I know it's been a while since I've done a lot of the how to fix up country living type videos, but I've got a few more planned now. We're getting into the spring. And so we'll come back to doing that shortly as well. So thank you again. You get a chance to see my face for the first time, I realize. And maybe we'll do more of these updates as this whole pandemic 2020 continues. Stay strong, stay safe, and have faith.